Hey, good morning. Happy, let's see, today is Wednesday here in hot Michigan. It is, I think it got up to 100 degrees yesterday, and today is going to be close to that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that feels. But this morning at my morning coffee spot feels great. Feels, it's probably 70 something and just wonderful. So, there was a few things I thought we could talk about today that would help us kind of go over you know what to do next. And I think what's important for a lot of business owners to begin to think about is, how do I build a sellable business? And when I like to compartmentalize a lot of my thought processes, add reduce them to uh, some commonality that would have to make that thing true in order to work. And so if somebody's trying to give me some type of intellectual, you know, opinion or thought, and the more definitive they are, I want to look for uh, the reduced logical implications of what's being said, and then weigh it against if that's true, or if that's always true, or if that's ever not. If somebody's saying this has to be this way, I look for examples where it's not that way, and then I begin to try to reduce it to some common aspect of truth where, if they're either right or wrong, I can incorporate that. That's long winded, but when creating a sellable business, what I like owners to do is imagine you only will get paid as an owner if you don't show up at work. There's a couple things that have to be true. A, you can't show up. B, you can't pick up the phone. Now you can network, you can go meet people face to face, you can socialize, you can do things like that, but you cannot punch in. You cannot go to the office. And the question there is, will your money and business continue to flow? And if that's not true, there's obviously a startup stage where that has to be true. In fact, you have to show up every day. You have to show up. You have to show up constantly, and you have to wear all the hats. You have to do all the jobs. And at first, when you're building a business, that's essential. But there has got to be a point in building the business where you step away to some degree, either positionally, where there's things that you begin to delegate, or physically, and eventually both, where the business has to begin to operate without you in it. There's this meme type photo I used to see where, I think it was by the founder of School, Sam. I forget his last name, but he would have this diagram where the business is basically in charge and pushing you around versus you whipping it into shape. And while you're starting a business, essentially you're starting a job, and you want to begin to graduate beyond that phase. And that could take 5 years, that could take 2 years, that could take 1 year, it could take 10 years. But either way, it is one of the biggest determining factors on the multiple that you're going to eventually get for that business. So if you're going to put all the blood, sweat, and tears into building the business, you should also be looking at different ways to begin to delegate. I always use this illustration when I'm talking to business owners, that business owners always tend to think that they are the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, the defensive tackle, and that they're the best ones that can do all of those positions. And for a while, in their unique ability, that's true, but they're not the best ones in all those positions. They're the only ones willing to be in those positions. He, she are the only ones able to be in those positions at that time, because that's all you can afford. So as you're wearing all those hats, you have to understand that there's somebody out there that has trained their whole life to be a running back. So they understand when cutting off of a tackle on turf versus grass can change. You need to change the angle of your cleats buried into the dirt. They've studied those variables. They've studied variables on humidity and how to carry the ball for that position to a degree in which you cannot commit to. And so those positions eventually have to be delegated. In fact, I remember Dan Sullivan said a story once. He went to a CPA and he said, "Boy, this is so boring. I don't know how you do this every single day." And she said, "Are you kidding me? This is amazing. I don't know what to expect every day. Things change. Every day is a different day with numbers." And so that's a sample of there's somebody out there who loves to do some of the things in your business right now that you don't love to do. And the eventual evolution of your stages of business should be to move you from doing the things you don't want to do to only doing the things that you want to do. And so as you begin to make that graduation, the business actually increases in value and it becomes much, much more sellable. So I say all that to tell you that one of the biggest challenges we have when we are looking over a business's financials is understanding the owner's involvement in the day to day. Now, you have to understand from a banker's perspective and from an owner's perspective, a future owner or buyer, the volatility of that. They have to really try to get in there and go, what were they doing? Like, they were there every day. They were working more than anybody else. And they were overpaying for a lot of these positions that you could pay a quarter of the price to have someone else do. But how many positions do we need to hire in order to fulfill all of the tasks the owner was doing that shouldn't have been being done by them? And until they get into the nitty gritty, that's why some of those transition periods are, it takes a little bit of understanding in order for them to even be comfortable with buying it. So, the more disciplined I am in life, the more money I make. And so there's certain areas in life that just have to become day to day. Now, for me, it's a ribeye in the air fryer. It's the easiest lunch if I don't have a client lunch every day. It's a ribeye or two beef patties, excuse me. And it's these morning coffees. I have a morning coffee here every day. It's my morning workout. I don't start taking client calls till after 10 a.m. That's a area of my high ability in terms of trying to get through. At this point, I've got a 9-year-old that I got to get off to school. Most of my kiddos have grown now, so I have on days that I have them. I have also a workout to get in. I have morning prep things that I got to get done, and so I have structured more and more of my day-to-day tasks in order to take out variables. And so at this stage, if you're, let's say, a year, 2 year, or plus out from retiring and wanting to sell, building into your day-to-day task uh, uh, a component in which you are beginning to phase out of the business and you're making that a daily ritual where it's like, okay, what am I going to begin to now delegate off of my plate? You're going to take a look at your whole plate and you're going to begin to make a plan for the next year. This plate's going to have to be cut down in half. And you're just going to make that a part of your morning ritual where you begin to just delegate. You begin to take things off. You begin to do less. You begin to show up less. And you have a bona fide business that's operating without you doing everything and involved every day at the office. You do that, you make your business much more sellable for us brokers. So I hope that helps. I hope you have a good day, and we'll chat again soon.